The Sunday morning, I came downstairs in my own house and found my mother-in-law reorganizing my kitchen cabinets. Not visiting my kitchen, reorganizing it, every cabinet open. Things moved. A small pile on the counter of items she had apparently decided needed to be relocated or possibly discarded. My grandmother's ceramic mixing bowl, the one I had used every Sunday morning since I moved into my own place at 23, sitting in the discard pile. She did not hear me come downstairs. She was humming. Actually humming. Comfortable and unbothered, and completely at home in a kitchen that was not hers. In a house she had let herself into with a key my husband had given her 18 months ago for emergencies. This was not an emergency. This was a Tuesday in October, except it was Sunday, and I was standing at the bottom of my own staircase in my own home, watching a woman reorganize my life without asking me and humming while she did it. I stood there for a moment. I looked at my grandmother's bowl in the discard pile, and something that had been slowly and quietly building for 2 years of marriage, and 3 years before that of being in this family, made a sound inside me like a door closing. Not slamming. Closing. The quiet kind. The permanent kind. I picked up my grandmother's bowl. I said, "Good morning, Linda." She turned around, smiled, completely unbothered. "Oh, good, you're up. I was going to make breakfast. Your cabinet organization makes no sense, by the way. I moved the spices to the left side. It's much more logical." I looked at her. I looked at my cabinets. I looked at the key she had set on my counter when she came in. And I smiled back. "Thank you," I said. That was thoughtful. I made coffee. I ate breakfast. I was pleasant for the remainder of her visit. And after she left, I sat at my kitchen table, and I opened my laptop, and I started writing down everything. Every visit. Every reorganization. Every comment. Every assumption. Every time she had walked into my home and treated it like an extension of hers. 2 years of marriage. 18 months of the key. Every single thing. Because I had decided something at the bottom of that staircase that I was not going to undecide. Never again. If someone has ever walked into your home and rearranged it like they owned it while you were still sleeping, hit that like button right now. Subscribe. Because what I did over the next 30 days was quiet and legal and completely permanent, and Linda did not see a single moment of it coming. My name is Rachel Torres. I am 31 years old. I work in project management, which means my entire professional life is built around understanding systems and identifying where systems are breaking down and fixing the breakdown before it becomes a crisis. I am good at this professionally. What I had not done for 2 years of marriage and 3 years of being in this family was apply it to my personal life. I had been accommodating instead, and accommodation, I have come to understand, is only a virtue when it is chosen freely. When it becomes the default response to pressure, it stops being accommodation and starts being erosion. I had been eroding. Slowly. Consistently. In ways I had kept explaining to myself as temporary or as the normal adjustment period of joining a new family, or as things that were not worth the conflict they would create to address. Let me tell you about Linda. My mother-in-law is a woman who loves her son with a completeness that has never quite expanded to include the idea that loving him also means respecting the life he has chosen. She is not malicious. I want to be clear about that because malice would have been simpler in some ways. Malice you can point to. What Linda practiced was something more ambient. A constant low-level presence in our lives that operated on the assumption that her comfort and her preferences and her access were simply part of the arrangement. She called David every day. Not every few days, every day. Usually in the morning before work, sometimes in the evening, occasionally both. She had opinions about our apartment when we were dating, about our house when we bought it, about the neighborhood, about the decor, about the fact that I had not repainted the living room the color she had suggested when we moved in. She had opinions about my cooking. She had opinions about my career, and whether my hours were reasonable, and whether project management was the kind of job that would allow me to be present the way a wife should be present, which was a sentence. She actually said to me at a family dinner 18 months into our marriage, and which I had smiled through and not responded to because I had been eroding. The key had been David's idea. He had given it to her without asking me. I had found out when she used it for the first time, letting herself in while we were both at work to drop off a dish she had made, leaving it in the refrigerator and a note on the counter and a rearranged spice rack that I did not notice until 2 days later. I had asked David about the key. He had said she meant well. He always said she meant well, which is the sentence that kept me eroding for 18 more months. The document I started writing after the Sunday morning cabinet reorganization took me 3 days to complete. I titled it simply, Record, 2 years of specific incidents. Dates where I could remember them. Descriptions of what had happened and what had been said. The cumulative picture of an arrangement that had never been agreed to, but had been allowed to become the operating reality of my home. On day 4, I called my friend Maya. Maya had known me since before David. She had watched the relationship develop and had said things occasionally, gently, that I had heard and not fully received because I was in love, and I thought things would settle into a better shape on their own. They had not settled. I need to think out loud, I told her. I've been waiting for this call, she said. I told her everything, the cabinet reorganization, the bowl in the discard pile, the key, the 18 months, the whole record. She listened without interrupting until I was finished. Then she said, "What do you want to happen?" I told her. "Okay," she said. "How can I help?" The conversation with David happened on a Thursday evening. I had spent 3 days deciding how to have it because the how mattered. I did not want it to be a fight. I did not want it to be a list of complaints that he could address one by one and explain away one by one, because David was good at explaining things away one by one. I wanted it to be a conversation about a decision I had already made, not a request. Not a negotiation, a decision. There is a difference, and the difference changes the entire shape of the conversation. I made dinner. We ate. We talked about our weeks. Then I cleared the table and I sat back down and I put my document in front of him. Not all of it. A summary. 1 page. The pattern visible in 10 specific examples chosen to represent the full 2 years. He looked at it. He started to say something. I said, "Let me finish first." He stopped. I told him what I had been experiencing for 2 years. Not as a complaint, as a description. The specific feeling of being a guest in my own home. The erosion. The Sunday morning with my grandmother's bowl in the discard pile. Then I told him what I had decided. "I need the key back," I said. "Your mother's key. I need it back." He looked at me. "Rachel, I'm not asking," I said. "I'm telling you what I need. She can visit. She is always welcome to visit. But I need to know when she is coming into my home, and I need to have agreed to it. That is not a big ask, David. That is a basic ask." He was quiet for a moment. "She's going to take it badly," he said. "I know," I said. "She'll think I told her to give it back." "You did tell her," I said. "We did. We are telling her together." He looked at the document again. He looked at me. And I watched him do something I had not seen him do in 2 years of marriage when it came to his mother. He made a choice. "Okay," he said. "We'll do it together." We called Linda on Saturday morning. David made the call. I sat beside him. He put it on speaker. She answered warm and easy the way she always answered her son. David said, "Mom, Rachel and I need to talk to you about something." A shift in her tone. Barely perceptible. But there. "Of course. What is it?" David looked at me. I nodded. "We need the house key back," he said. "Rachel and I have talked about it, and we both feel like we need our home to be a space where we know when people are coming. It's not about you specifically. It's about us having that boundary in place." Silence. Then. "I see. Then. Did Rachel put you up to this?" David said, "Rachel and I made this decision together. As we should. We're married. Another silence. I've never done anything but try to help, she said. David said, I know, Mom, and you can still help. You're always welcome in our home. We just need to know when you're coming. So I have to make an appointment to see my son. You have to call ahead like everyone else does, David said. Yes. The conversation went in circles for a few more minutes. Linda tried several approaches. The guilt angle, the misunderstanding angle, the I have never been made to feel so unwelcome in my life angle. David held the position. Every time. I watched my husband hold a position with his mother for the first time in 2 years of marriage, and I felt something shift between us that was significant and quiet and real. At the end of the call, Linda said she would return the key at her next visit. David said, Actually, Mom, can you drop it off this week? We'd appreciate it. A pause. Fine, she said. She dropped it off on Tuesday. She did not come inside. She rang the bell, handed David the key when he answered, and left. I was in the kitchen when it happened. David came in and set the key on the counter. We looked at it for a moment. Then I picked it up and I put it in the drawer where I keep things that are mine and are staying mine. I want to tell you what happened after because the after is where the real story is. The first month was the hardest, Linda called. David more during that month than she had in the previous 6 combined. He took most of the calls. Some he did not. She made comments in some of those calls about feeling shut out and about how the relationship had changed and about whether Rachel understood what family meant. David reported these calls to me honestly. He did not hide them or minimize them or translate them into softer versions. That honesty was new and it mattered. I did not tell him how to handle the calls. They were between him and his mother, and his relationship with her was his to manage. What I had needed was my home back, and my home was back, and the management of the relationship beyond that was his work to do. He did it. Not perfectly. Not without difficulty. But genuinely, Linda visited for the first time 6 weeks after the key conversation. She called ahead. She arrived at the time she had said she would arrive. She did not reorganize anything. She did open one of my cabinets, the one where I keep baking supplies, and she paused for a moment looking at it. I watched her pause. She closed the cabinet. She said, Can I help with anything? I said, Yes, actually. Can you wash those vegetables while I get the pasta started? She washed the vegetables. We had a perfectly functional dinner. She left at 9. She called David the next morning, but she called at a normal time, and she talked about the dinner and the food, and she said my pasta was very good. David told me. I said, Good, and that was it. That was the shape of the new arrangement. It has been 8 months since the Sunday morning with my grandmother's bowl. Linda and I are not close. We are not going to be close in the way that some daughters-in-law and mothers-in-law are close, and I have made my peace with that because that kind of closeness requires a different foundation than the one we have, and I am not going to perform. What we are is functional. She comes to dinner. She calls ahead. She does not reorganize things. She offers to help, and sometimes I say yes, and sometimes I say no, and either way she accepts it. It is not warm. It is respectful. And respectful is what I asked for. My grandmother's bowl is on the second shelf of the cabinet above the stove, where it has always been, where it will stay. David and I are in a different place than we were 8 months ago. Not easier exactly. More honest, which is harder in the short term and better in the long term. And I will take that trade every single time. He sees things now that he did not see before. Or maybe he saw them and is now willing to say so. I am not sure which one it is, and I have decided it does not matter because the result is the same. He is present in a way that he was not before. He holds positions. He reports honestly. He does the work. That work has changed. Us, for the better. Here is what I want you to know. There is a version of this story where I blow up, or the Sunday morning with my grandmother's bowl in the discard pile is the moment I lose it and say everything I have been not saying. For 2 years at full volume, I understand that version. I had it available to me. I chose something different. Not because I am patient by nature. I am not particularly patient by nature. but because I understood that what I actually wanted was not the release of saying everything at full volume. What I wanted was my home. My actual home. The space where I come downstairs on Sunday morning and my grandmother's bowl is where I put it, and nobody has decided where my spices should live, and the key to my front door is held by the people I have chosen to give it. To that is what I wanted, and losing my composure was not going to get me that. A document and a conversation and a decision made clearly and held firmly was going to get me that. So that is what I did. The key is in my drawer. My bowl is on the shelf. My home is mine. It was always supposed to be mine. It just took one Sunday morning and one discard pile and one ceramic bowl that belonged to my grandmother to make me understand that supposed to be and actually is are two different things, and only one of them is worth fighting for.